Rudy Rockman is a Jewish rights activist and a reservist for the Israeli Defense Force and has been sporadically checking in with us as the war he's fighting against Hamas reaches 24 days now. So Rudy joins us once again. Rudy, thank you. So bring us up to date on what it's been like for you fighting this war for your country.
I want to make it clear that for us, the soldiers on the ground, we're not fighting the Palestinian people. We're not fighting civilizations or populations. We're fighting Hamas, a regime that has taken control over Gaza, has taken control over the Palestinians, and that is using Palestinians as pawns in order to continue this cycle of violence and to cause suffering both for Israelis and Palestinians. The reality is that Israelis and Palestinians are not only neighbors, but we are family, we are cousins. So any Palestinian that is dying, it's a cousin of mine that is dying. It's not only a fellow human, it's a family member. Now, we need to ask ourselves not just what is happening, but why is it happening? Why are innocent Palestinians dying? Because Hamas is shooting rockets at Israeli civilians, and they're shooting those rockets from civilian locations, from homes, from refugee camps, from kindergartens, from schools, from hospitals, intentionally for when Israel has to respond to stop the fire on its population for civilian casualties to skyrocket. Now, Israel warns before it strikes those civilian areas in order to minimize civilian casualties, but Hamas forces those Palestinian civilians to stay in those areas in order to increase Palestinian casualties and to sell this image that the reason for why this conflict is happening is because Israel is a monster. And this fits into the D's of what anti-Semitism represents. To demonize, to dehumanize, to delegitimize, or to hold a double standard to the Jewish people or Israel is the definition of anti-Semitism. And so we need to understand why this is happening, not just what is happening. When you go to a doctor, you don't just talk about your symptoms, you're trying to find the source of the symptoms. And the source of the symptom is Hamas using its population as a proxy war in order to create more ammunition for them to go against Israel and to also benefit all the foreign aid that's going to be pouring into the Palestinians. I think the Palestinians are going to be touching that. It's going right into the pockets of Hamas that they will reinvest in creating more terrorism and reinvest into the pockets, which is why all the leaders of Hamas are billionaires today. Now, the question is really, what are we going to do when the war ends? How are we going to rebuild? How are we going to heal the relations? And both sides need to understand there is no future where Israelis or Palestinians disappear. So in order to transcend this conflict, we need to focus on a reality that fulfills the aspirations of both collectives, which are different and do not contradict, and also focus on how to undo the injustices that have gone on in the past and also are still going on to both populations, which are also different and not a competition. And until we start having that conversation, nothing is going to change. If you see a lot of videos in the West, in America, in Europe, and different places of protest happening, you have one side screaming out at the other side and trying to speak to everyone else in the world as to how the other side is the bad side. Well, the reality is that both sides are the good side, and both sides are caught up in this conflict that many interest groups are profiting from, but definitely not the Israelis and definitely not the Palestinians. We're both suffering from this, and we need to wake up and realize that both of our next generations and the generations after eternally will be born onto this land. And until a generation wakes up and realizes that we must build a land that is free for both of our peoples together, that will be the moment that we'll be able to transcend this conflict.
Coming to us there from the battlefield and keeping us updated. We'll talk again soon. Appreciate it, Rudy. Thank you.